PD.
So we'd like to begin checking. I think Kurt is still setting up. Would you like to get started for us?
Sure. I'm Rob, I'm good, oh well. I have no time constraints, 7 p.m. Gosh, this is so tinny. Do we have any bass in this thing? Hello. We have, Kim Hutchins is missing. She will not be here tonight. And Mr. Burnside, Carl will be late. Anybody else? I don't know. No elephants. My expectation is to reach agreement on several items.
I'm having flashbacks to when I was substituting in the kindergarten.
Yes, you did. I believe that was stolen on you.
It was. I'm Will Rothenberg. I'm doing well. No time constraints missing has been noted. No elephants, and I will go with Rob's expectation to reach agreement on several items.
Good evening, I'm Heather Leonard. I'm well tonight. I don't have any time constraints outside of our 7 o'clock. I believe the missing have been noted. I don't have any elephants, and also have reached agreement on several items.
Kelly Lecture, time constraints just our regular in time. Missing is noted, no elephants, and I'll go with the same expectation.
I'm Ben, I'm good, I have no time constraints, the missing's noted, I have no elephants and expectations, reach agreements on several items.
I'm Shannon Johnston, I'm doing great, no time constraints. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and same expectation.
Good afternoon, I'm Ivy McFarland. I'm doing well. No time constraint beyond our 7 p.m. end time. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and expectation, reach agreement on several items.
I'm Rachel, I'm okay. No time constraints, no elephants, and make good progress.
Jessica, from Student Services, doing well, no time constraints, as it was noted, no elephants, and she made progress.
Hi, I'm Christine Trode. I'm doing well tonight. I do not have any time constraints, missing noted. No elephants, and expectation is to make a lot of progress.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm doing great. I have no time constraints. Missing's noted, no elephants. Expectation, reach agreement on several items.
Hi, I'm Suzette. I'm doing well, no time constraints, missing has been noted, no elephants, and my expectations are to reach agreement. Kurt?
I'm Kurt Jones. I'm doing okay, much better than I was this time last week. No time constraints. I believe only Lewis is on it. Okay, so no one's missing. Elephants, none. Expectations, make progress.
My name is Kevin Daly, Teachers Association Lake County President. I am recovering from a meeting earlier today. Time constraints, none. 7 o'clock is good. Missing noted, elephants none. Expectation, we'll go reach agreement on several items.
Hi, I'm Jill Castellano, and I'm a PCT at Varsity Lakes Middle, and I'm the Vice President of TALC. I am doing quite well. My time constraint is the 7 o'clock. Who is missing has been noted. I don't have an elephant, but I do have a question around when our school secretaries will be receiving the spreadsheet to calculate class coverage and get that paid, because at our last meeting, we talked about having that ready for having some of it at least prepared for that February 28th paycheck. And I know that payroll closes things out a few days before. So I just have some questions about that, and my expectation is to reach an agreement on several items.
Good evening, I am Anna Witten. I am a third grade teacher at Colonial Elementary as well as the TALC secretary. I'm doing fine, no time constraints, missing's been noted, no elephants, and I would like to make progress.
Hello, my name is Samantha Howard. I am a full-time PCT at Harms Marsh Middle School. I have no time constraints, or I'm okay. I have no time constraints. Missing has been noted. I do not have any elephants. And I would like to reach agreement on several items.
Good evening, my name is Shay Pearson. I'm doing okay. I'm a testing coordinator at Island Coast High School. I'm also an ESOL adult ed educator, so I do have a time constraint of 6 p.m. tonight, so I can start my ESOL class. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and my expectations are to make progress.
Hi, I'm Tara Sherman. I'm the school counselor at Reva C. Page Elementary. I'm doing great. No time constraints. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and I would like to reach agreement on several items.
Hi, good evening. My name is Iris Grimaldi. I'm a school social worker. I have no time constraints. I'm doing okay. Have no time constraints. Missing has been noted, no elephants, and hoping to make agreements on several items.
Good evening, I'm Christina Starrett. I am a full-time kindergarten through 5th grade art teacher at Tortuga Preserve. Doing well, no time constraints, missing is noted, no elephants. Expectation is to make progress, please.
Good evening, my name is Bob Scabatolo. I teach math at Three Oaks Middle School, and I'm doing fine. Missing is noted. And like Jill, I don't know if you want to consider it an elephant, but I know that last week, we had an issue with minutes. And again, we show up tonight and there's no minutes. And the delay last week was caused by the lack of minutes. So I don't know, I'm looking at the minutes that we just received tonight, we got earlier from the January 18th, and there were some things that are missing from that were put in options. So I don't know what we're gonna do as far as going through. I mean, we talked a half an hour last week, probably on minutes that were not given to us. So I don't know how we want to address it now, or if you want to address it later, but to me, it's an elephant. And my expectations is to make progress.
Good evening, I'm Amy Johnson. I am a teacher at Mariner Middle School. I teach 6th grade language arts. I'm feeling a little awkward right now with my seating, but I think I'll grab a table sometime when we get a break and stick it in here so I'm not in the corner. And I have no time constraints, no elephants. Did I miss anything? No. My expectation is to make progress.
Good afternoon, my name is LaShonda Hutchins Cole, and I am the math coach at Franklin Park Elementary. And today I'm okay. I have no time constraints, missing has been noted. I have no elephants, and expectation is to reach agreement on several items.
Good evening, my name is Mario Dorstal, doing well, no time constraint. I teach math at South Fort Myers High School. Missing's noted. I'd like to see that we reach agreement on several items and no elephants.
Okay, thank you. All right, we had, yes, well. No, is that a little button?
Oh, she did.
I have no idea how a kindergartner got out of my line of sight and was able to turn this thing on as quickly as he did.
That's a 5-year-old.
I just wanted to respond. I know Jill had asked when communication was going to come out from payroll. We worked on trying to put together planned communications and not to overwhelm anyone. Had the TALC helpful hints go out first. I spoke to Kim Hutchins earlier. She was boarding a plane, and I think the direction from payroll is going to go out today. We have more communication going out tomorrow and more communication heading out at the end of the week. One of the things that I noticed as I was going through the minutes was that we had an issue that was discussed in terms of confidential secretaries and other people sharing information before it was ready to go out. So I just want to thank everyone in advance for their patience as we work to put out official communications in order to stop some of the noise that has been created around this issue as people have speculation and sidebar conversations about what it is that we've agreed to in this room. We did send out, I think, 17 pages of minutes from the bargaining session that took place earlier in January, and we have probably another 15 or so coming from the next one. I'm about halfway through that, and I'm also recovering from the same meeting that Kevin was in. I know it was mentioned 9 of the past 12 months we have not had a secretary in our department. We're suffering from the same staffing shortages at the district office as schools are. I went out to Varsity Lakes earlier this week and got to see what that looks like in a school firsthand. I can tell you it feels different when you have kids in your face, but it's stressful for everyone. So again, I appreciate you guys being understanding, and we'll work to get those out to you as quickly as possible moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Will. So Bob, are you all right moving forward
That's fine.
this evening?
That's fine.
Okay.
Just want to make note.
Do we need to have any more discussion about the minutes? Do you want to hold off on the minutes from the 18th, I think it was, at this point, Bob?
Well, we have to approve them.
That's what I'm asking, because everybody hasn't had a chance to read them. That's what I'm asking if you need to hold off. I know Kurt hasn't had a chance to read them.
We can do email approval too, if that works. We did that with, I think, 3 or 4 sets of minutes for SAL recently too.
Bob?
Can I just make a comment about the minutes so that when you make the corrections? I know that on one of them, there's reference to option 19, I believe, on the previous minutes, and there's no option in there. So I don't know what that option was.
Where is this, Bob?
What page, Bob, is it on?
Well, I believe that the January 18th talks about option 19 on the previous minutes from January, I think it was the 4th? So if we go to January 4th and look, you'll see that option 19, there's nothing there.
Okay, well.
That was a correction to the minutes from the previous session because option 19 was left off. Option 19, I believe, from what I was looking at earlier today, was the option that Dr. Pizzone presented, which was a one-time bonus of $4,000 for all members of the TALC bargaining unit. So we'll make sure that that's included in the previous minutes so that when you reference it, I think we had made the correction, but the corrected version has not been published yet. So once it is, it should all.
So we'll get the January 4th corrected ones as well?
Yes, and we were also working on, because we had, I think at the end of the day, 20 options and 8 straw designs and 5 tests for consensus. We tried to somehow put that into something that was a page or 2 long so that you don't have to read through 500 pages of minutes to know kind of where we were at.
All right, thank you. And I think the reason why I'm bringing it up is because the last time we got together, we had to pull up December 1st paper, put it on the wall and go backwards instead of forward, and I think that we're okay now. Thank you.
Okay. And Jill, you're okay with your concern? I know we'll address that as well. Okay, all right. Then let's, we're gonna hold off and do January 18 minutes by email. Is that okay with everybody? Done, Steve, before. Thank you. All right, so first on the agenda tonight, I believe, was Article TBD on professional development. And where are we on that? Do we have a story? Will?
So we do have a story, and I don't know, I think we had an option that was put up at the last minute, but one of the things that happened since we last met was the TALC Management Committee met and discussed some of this stuff from caucuses, and there was, I think, a recommendation from the TALC Labor Management Committee to look at compensation and making the voluntary training rate $25 an hour. And I think the hope was that maybe we could get quick consensus around that, and then if necessary, and if we can have the conversation quickly, so we're not throwing out other stuff, have some discussion about some of the other general concerns about the language as it's good. Did I capture that right?
Yes, you did, but I believe Jill next to me, I think after, again, hearing what they were talking about, and saying the language, it should be a pretty quick list fix with Amy here, maybe stepping out of her role for a moment to answer questions, because Dr. Martin's not here, but I'm going to hand it to Jill and she can go over her questions. Because I think we can consider the whole article and then move rather quickly.
Okay, so I have a couple questions, and most of what I want to bring up, I believe, can be resolved in labor management by just adding some clarifying language, and then I do have some options to put up. So the first thing that I want to bring up, and this is a labor management conversation where I believe language can just be fleshed out. I know we don't have as many schools doing skinny days and schools in need of improvement. But when we've done those days, teachers have been paid at their hourly rate. The teachers are coming back. It used to be 5 days, but now I think it's anywhere from 1 to 3 days. And we have an interest as TALC to maintain that if it's a city day, that the teachers could still be paid their hourly rate. That doing that would not change. And again, that's something I think can be fleshed out. I'm gonna give Amy a second to catch up. And I did receive some communication from Helen about this next topic, but I would like it to, when we look at that article, under 4.03, implementing number 4, where it says compensation. This is 14.03, and then the 4 is in the parentheses. Where it talks about compensation. I would just like something in there about which PDs qualify for payment. And I say that because when we've dealt with mandatory or required, these words have come about, right? And so what has happened is that there's been a debate about, what required means. And I'll give you guys an example. One of the questions that I have received from a teacher was hired to be an AVID teacher. And then the teacher was told, hey, there's this AVID conference for you to go to be the AVID teacher. And they're like, well, but now that's mandatory. I should get my hourly rate for those 5 days. And so we constantly bounce back and forth, mandatory or required. So we're hoping to get some clarity. And then the other reason I asked for clarification is, as a PCT, one of my job expectations is to provide PD to my teachers. And so I do that, and we offer it from 8:30 to 9 at my school. That 30 minutes is outside of the contract day. And when I look at that language, I don't know if my teachers qualify to get paid or not. So I just wanted some clarity around which PDs when a teacher takes a PD, which ones qualify for payment. So I just would like that in there because in the past when we had mandatory and voluntary, required and voluntary, we would get bombarded with questions and it just becomes a little confusing. And so I just thought if we put that in there, it would clarify for people, this is when it qualifies for payment.
Jill, is your intention to put that through labor
Yes,
management
ma'am,
as
yes,
well?
yes. I believe I go through labor management as well. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome. Thank you. What else?
Another interest that we have, and again, this could go through labor management, is setting some type of limit on the number of hours a teacher could be asked or required, or not, I hate to use the word required, but asked or mandated, whatever word would work by their principal, not putting a limit on voluntary, like I want to do these PDs, but making sure that we are being mindful that we're not having teachers being assigned or asked or sent to 12 hours of PD a month. Because teachers are providing so much class coverage, so much of our work is falling outside of our contractual day on the weekends. We don't want teachers to feel overloaded, so I don't know, it's just.
What language? No limit on voluntary PD, but.
How much can be required, like, I mean, I'm looking at the idea of stuff being voluntold, but just like, teachers sometimes get into situations where they're being asked to participate in a lot of PD, and I worry that if we ask them to do like hours and hours, like from the administrator standpoint. I don't use that. From lab.
Are you done?
No, but we'll have Tanner, so I stopped.
Oh,
I
okay.
figured you.
All right, well,
I'm not done, no, I gotta.
So you can finish.
All right, she's pausing. If you want to go ahead, Bill.
I had a question just because Jill had mentioned this, and I was wondering if that was in relation to the concern about like, people being told you've got the ESE teacher supplement, so you can be required to do, teach training, and you can be required to do IEP training, and whatever trainings we want, we're paying you as much as a bowling coach, so, your time belongs to us. Is it like that? That's the concern?
Essentially, yes, and it's more so about how many hours a month, like not being mindful about putting a person in a position where they've been asked or told by their administrator to do 9, 10, 12 hours of PD in a single month. So I'm just looking at, and that's something that I think is of value because we do see that. So that was a labor management conversation though that you guys can flesh out. And then I have 2 options, but I don't know if anybody has any other comments before I put options up. I don't know. Donna, what should I say?
Does anybody else have anything they want to add to what Jill said?
And then I can go
Sam?
back for options.
This could also very well be taken care of in labor management.
Okay.
But what I think would be helpful is on 14.025, the outside professional development. I know there are places that live within schools.net that have a lot more information than is listed in this particular language about the expectations and what would count for that outside professional development. Because right now, this only references that the professional development department will assess and approve or deny requests. So to kind of save on some of those requests being denied, to maybe reference, because I know sometimes those documents change, but to reference in here where to find those requirements of the documents. So.
Okay. Yeah. Rather than having to call somebody or fill out an application and then have it denied and
Right.
not knowing why it was, yeah.
Got it.
Okay, Jill, options?
Okay, so I have two options.
All right, go with number one.
So my first option is under 14.03. And then it's the 3 in the parentheses for scheduling.
Okay.
I believe it's the 8th line down, where it says professional, so this is what it currently says, professional development may be scheduled during preschool week and early dismissal days. I wanted to add, in front of early dismissal, I wanted to add designated, so this sentence would read, professional development may be scheduled during the preschool week and on designated. And designated is a word that I'm adding, so I don't know if you guys want to underline that on there. Okay. Early dismissal days. And then this next part is an added piece, as determined by the calendar committee.
Okay, that's the end of one.
Yeah, that's the first one. And my rationale, I don't know if I need to provide this, but is to protect other early dismissal days, like the end of the year days or days during exams where teachers would be using that time to grade or pack up their classroom. And if that needs to be wordsmithed. So that's the first one. And then my second one is also for number 1403, 4 in parentheses. I would like to put up the option that we change $25 to the hourly rate of a new teacher. And that we index that amount so that as new teacher salary goes up, the rate goes up. And I believe new teacher salary, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is about $31.07.
Okay, anything else, Kevin?
Yeah. All right, yeah, so, I would like to also, because I would assume with this article, we're gonna kind of deal with the professional development piece in Article 10. So as to not conflict, are we gonna move stuff from 10 to this article? Or strike it, or whatever?
Yeah, I think we would need to align, and we can talk about that when we get to the TA,
So,
whether
well,
it belongs in one place or the other.
I would like to lift 10 point,
You want this an option?
yes, please. 10.04, 3A.
10.04.
3A. And it preserves the hourly rate for the required trainings.
All right, anything else, Kevin? Yes.
This may not necessarily be an option, but I think it's something we've talked about doing, and I think it's something we need to commit to doing, which is, I'm a volunteer firefighter. Did you know that? Because for 25 years, I've been trained on how to use a fire extinguisher. I'm a certified asbestos inspector too. So some of these mandatory trainings that everybody has to take at the start of the year are obligated via state law, and some of them are obligated via board policy. And would you believe, I'm I'm not required to take HIPAA or FERPA training. Seems kind of necessary. So I think I want to look at where board policy is involved and see if we can have a rotation schedule, and maybe take things off of the fire extinguisher every year, really, for 25 years, really? And, make that once every 5, if that's a board policy component, and maybe sub in some other things every once in a while that might be appropriate for people's job descriptions. And we've talked over the past couple of years of that, but we just haven't sat down and really done anything about it. But I think that's kind of the next logical step here.
Do you want it as an option or you just want us to capture it?
I think taking it hostage is enough, so you can just capture it.
All right, Rob?
Yeah, just regarding Jill's options, at least the first one, I have some questions. I know Carl's not here, and I just have to ask, so forgive my naivety, but we currently have in next year's calendar these 4 days for PD, early dismissals. So is the intent of your language, Jill, to not permit PD on any other early dismissal days? Is that what you're doing?
Governed by contract.
Right.
Yes, so, the days, and whatever calendars we put in the future, if we designate early dismissal days for PDs, then those are the days that PDs that can be scheduled. And again, I'm not saying that a school couldn't make something 100% voluntary and it should be communicated as such to teachers and there should be no pressure, but on the early dismissal days prior to adding the PD days, like usually around exams and at the end of the school year, I would like to see that time protected for teachers because they do need that time for grading, planning, or end of the year stuff. So that's why I want to put that there so that there's a difference between early dismissal, but then it also protects those early dismissal days and it makes it clear that those are there for professional development. And so when your principal's working with their leadership team or getting a directive from the professional development department, they understand that that's not a day that we do other things. So that protects the intent of those days and protects the time that the teachers need on the others.
Thank you. And
Anything
then,
else, Rob?
yeah, the third option, which I think Kevin put up there.
Right.
So you want to preserve the mandatory voluntary language, is that?
Well, the voluntary language is I'm more concerned about the required language being retained.
Okay.
At the hourly rate, at least. I know we had a meeting, an executive session last time, and this kind of came up until we figure it out, but teachers have reached out to me already based on our limited discussion around this, losing that that hourly rate for required trainings. And if we codify it, if we just move it over, it just keeps it there.
Okay, thanks. So I am going to request a very brief caucus.
Okay. All right.
And then we'll be back.
Okay. Before we get let's take the caucus report first. That'll give Carl time to settle down, settle in, and Louis, so they can check it. So
the caucus report is, we discussed the issues regarding the proposed Article 14, and have a couple of options that we will discuss after the individuals go through check-in.
Okay, thank you. Louis, right behind you is the check-in for tonight and the expectations, if you want to check in.
We're bringing you a mic, Liz.
Wouldn't be earning me out.
Thank you. All right, I'm Louis Fisher, Director of Bands at Gateway High School. I'm all right today, have no time constraints. Missing is noted, no elephants, and just my expectation is to make positive progress.
Okay, thank you. And Carl?
Carl Burnside, Dunbar High School. Doing fine, with time constraints. I assume this has been noted. No elephants. Expectations, progress.
Great, thank you very much, and welcome to both of you. All right, Rob, you said you had some options.
Yeah.
The mic's coming.
Okay. Hello? Okay. So we have what would be option 4, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we would like to move the training rate from $15 an hour to $25 an hour. Okay, and then we would also like to put an option 5, which would be the language from the proposed Article 14.034. And I don't want to have to read the whole thing to you all, but you guys have, does somebody have the proposed language? I mean, it says, don't write this, but employees will be paid at a rate of $25 per hour for all professional development completed outside of regularly scheduled work hours. Administrative approval is required in order to receive payment for professional development in excess of 60 hours per fiscal year. So that's the current, not current, that's the draft language. And then I would like to propose a straw design of 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Can you tell me those one more time, Rob? I'm sorry.
1, 3, 4, and 5. So it excludes the indexing.
Evan?
So there's no appetite to index even at the 25?
I think the concern is, this is grant money, and we're concerned about somehow exhausting that. So I'm not going to tell you in future years, if we determine that this has been extremely affordable, that we wouldn't have the appetite for something different in the future. However, $10 increase without determining how that financially affects schools is something I have folks on our team that are concerned about.
Okay. Kevin, are you continuing?
Yeah.
And then Sam, I've got you.
I thought, okay.
In charge for very long.
thought you were afraid of indexing because of the massive raises you were proposing when we get to compensation. Is that not a fear?
Oh, if it was up to me, Kevin.
All right, I'm gonna pass it to Sam.
All right, Sam?
So mine's more of a question on the compensation, the end of that compensation language regarding administrator approval. And what, is that my principal? Like if they're not funding this, would they be able to approve something that they're not funding? And then if I hit that 60 hours and my administrator says no, but Anna's administrator says yes, like where, there's an inequity there. So again, probably a labor management conversation, but maybe clarifying who is the administrator that would be providing that.
Well, you wrote the language, I'm assuming the intent is the building administrator, correct?
I think it was based in part. I think it was based in part on the estimate that professional development set for their budget, which is the title grant money. I don't think that would necessarily mean that it need to be limited to that. So if
Ben or Rachel or Carl wanted to pay someone for training in access,
and they had that in their school budget, I don't think we would
exclude that, yeah.
Okay, anything else, Bob?
Right there.
Yeah, I just have one, a question about the $25, and I know you said that it was gonna be provided by, with the grant money? So in the past, how was it funded before?
Similarly.
I'm sorry?
Same way, similarly.
With the grant?
Yes, with grant money.
So it's not ISA money?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, clarifications, Kerr?
I just want to make sure that I understand the straw design, because we have the draft language. So we have option, is it 1, 3, 4, and 5?
Correct.
Correct. So that's the draft language, Jill's edit about designated and instructional calendar committee, and Kevin's option of lifting 10.043A. Correct. Okay, thank you.
Option 1 is about designated, adding the word designated to the language.
The calendar committee.
And the calendar committee. The base, the PD, yeah, so it's just the PD, piece that other calendar committee. Jill?
So just real quick, and then the part that Sam brought up about the administrator approval, that's gonna go to labor management. We put that down as a labor management, okay.
Okay, so we have a STAR design of 1, 3, 4, and 5. Any other questions or clarifications, or are we ready to move forward? Sure. All right, all those in favor of the STAR design, 1, 3, 4, 5? May I see thumbs, please? It looks like we have an agreement. Excellent.
I have a question. By agreeing with the straw design, we agree for everything else in 14 going in the contract, right? Or do we have to do a thing for that?
No, that was part of that.
I did make a copy.
Yeah. No, that'll all be, when somebody gets together to write all this, it'll all be straightened out. All right, anything else on that TBD, PD article? All right, we had 2 other things on the list. On the agenda for this evening, any, Kevin?
Why don't we tackle the turnaround recommendation next? I think we've got somebody ready to zoom in.
Okay, turnaround's fine, Rob?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Lee Master and I chair that committee, so he has requested to be, if possible, because sometimes things happen around this time with dismissal, to be on Zoom, so I have a Zoom open, so I'm just gonna text him and see if he can log in, so if we can maybe like take a 2-minute.
Yes.
Thank you.
Reset.
Yeah.
Sure she does.
paths, so I don't know.
Happy group, Scott. All right, we ready to move forward, and who is starting this conversation?
The chairs, the chair.
The chair? All right, Kevin?
So before we begin this process, I would like to appreciate and thank the co-chairs of this committee for their commitment to our long-standing commitment to doing things through a committee-based process. However, I feel it incumbent upon myself to bring up the fact that this year, there may have been outside interference in the process. And so I just want to make sure that as we move forward with committees and recommendations, we take the recommendation of the committee and things that want to be altered are altered at the committee with the committee's consent. Having said that, thanks Scott and Jill, and I'm done.
All right, Jill, you're up.
So I just want to say that the Turnaround School Committee started about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago when the district came with a proposal to provide a supplement to 5 turnaround schools. And it was at that time that there was a request from the TALC unit to put together a committee to look at the supplement and look at how we're supporting and what we're doing for those turnaround schools, because at the time we had some schools in our district who were in differentiated accountability. So since then, Scott and I have been working together on this committee, I want to say for maybe 5 or 6 years. And since then, we have developed a rubric. Our process has been to put the schools in the rubric, and we look at school grade, we look at teacher turnaround, admin turnaround, not turnaround, I'm sorry, turnover, teacher turnaround, admin support. We look at a GPA of school grade. So we look at a number of different factors, which I know Will can put up on one of the screens. And we do a blind review of the schools, and we discuss what we see in that data, what trends are going on, and then we put together options for how we want to support those schools. And Scott, if you want to share anything, if you speak, everybody can hear you through the speakers.
Yeah, no, I hope you guys can hear me okay, and appreciate you inviting us in tonight. And I think Jill said it well. That rubric, 3-year school grade, 5-year school grade, spout turnover percentage, top turnover percentage, and admin turnover percentage. And you know, I know we've been working with that rubric and around that rubric for years. And I shouldn't say years, like Jill said, 5 or 6. And I think our committee was together, again, Will and Jill can probably correct me, together last about 6 to 7 weeks ago. And somewhere in that range, I don't remember the exact date. So, you know, we worked through the process, a lot of meetings, and I think we're making good, solid progress. And again, and Jill actually said it really well. There's probably not a whole lot more I could add.
Okay, Jill?
So what we would like to do, we discussed this as a committee, and Anna and Sam are also on the committee. I'm looking at Will always helps us. Carl, well, no, Carl's not on the committee, but Carl's always helpful. What we wanted to do is take the bargaining team through the same process that we go through. So we're gonna put up the information that we looked at without the names of schools. And so what Will did when he put the information up is he made sure there weren't schools visible. And he also made sure that we couldn't tell if the school was currently receiving the supplement or not, because we have 10 schools who get a supplement. So if that indicator was there, then we would be able to start possibly guessing who was on there. So we wanted to take the bargaining team through our process, show you what we do as a committee, show you our proposals for providing support for the teachers who work in that school, get your input, and then see if we can get an orange circle around one of the plans that we've put together.
And Jill and Will, if I might really quickly, would that also include, I know that there was actually some names that had been coming up, that had come up with, for instance, transformation, turnaround, transition. Would that all be on there also too, so we can, okay, thank you.
Will,
Exactly.
I don't know where that train is located.
Love train.
So I can try and zoom in a little bit there, and I'll try and send to everyone this so that you can see it later. But like Jill and Scott mentioned, we had on there whether a school was Title I or not, what their 2021, FY21 school grade would have been if the state had issued school grades, 2019, FY19 school grade, a 3-year school grade GPA, which is using a 4-point scale, so, you know, A, B, C, D, everyone's familiar with that, obviously. 5-year school GPA, 10-year school GPA, and then for the next 4 columns, we have the average number of years that a teacher has been at a specific location, the average number of years that administrators have been at that location, and then that support staff have been at that location. And then that final column, AD, is the number of years X, so that's teaching experience on average at that location. You guys can kind of see the recommendation there out to the side, but we filtered the list then by current school grade. Again, that's kind of the estimated. There were 3 that looked like they would have been F schools if the state had awarded a school grade. You can see looking at their, the 2019 grades, 2 of those were C, one of them is a B. Based on our understanding of the state's formula, they don't let you fall more than 1 letter grade per year. So this is two years out, so a B to an F probably would be a B to a D. But again, we were trying to capture that. Looking at those 3-year GPAs, you can see, you know, some of these schools at this end of the list are below a 2.0 for their 3-year. Most are at a 2.0 or higher for their 5-year. And then there's some that are above or below a 2.0 for their 10-year. And again, this was a blind review. Jill, if you minimize or stop presenting, then I can, that allows Scott to be able to, you're not that you see this. You have to go to Ignite.
Go to, stop presenting at the top middle of your screen. There you go.
There we go. Yeah. So, that gives you a little bit clearer picture. The committee put together, you can see on there kind of a platinum and a gold recommendation. The platinum obviously being the more expensive, and tried to tier the supplement recommendation based on what Scott was describing: transformation, turnaround, and transition. With the thought being those schools that are transformation schools are the ones that are at greatest risk of DA status. Because they currently have an F school grade or would, you know, again, and because their 3-year or 5-year is concerning. The turnaround, then there were 10 of those schools, and then the transition schools kind of came from there. We looked at what schools are currently receiving the supplement or not, and kind of base things from there. So, yeah.
And I just want to say, Will, when we look at how schools are ranked, which column moved? School grade is like I want the people here to understand how the school got to that number 1 position. What indicators came together to put them at number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
So we went by, if I remember correctly, it was sorted based on FY21 estimated school grade, then 3-year, then 5-year, then 10-year. The other information about kind of the continuity of staff We've measured that different ways in the past. The effort with this was to look at that and to be able to maybe pinpoint some of the other issues, areas of concern. I think everyone on the committee is of the same mindset that this is not perfect data, especially because it's based on school grade. I'll have to plug my computer in, sorry. Especially because it's based on school grade, but the thought was you could look at it and see if you had a school where most people have only been there for 3 years, or most people have only 5 or 6 years of overall teaching experience. The current district average number of years of teaching experience is a little over 11. The state average is like 11 and a half. So again, it was to try and give you an idea of what the makeup of the staff of that school looked like and what kind of consistency there was in that respect.
All right, Jill, anything else to add? Okay, go ahead.
So Will was able to show our proposals, and I think he's gonna plug in his computer so he can put the amounts back up that we have up there. We have two proposals. We have a platinum and a gold, so it fits with the Olympics going on right now. For the team to determine what funding we would like to do. So we put two proposals together, and I'm just trying to give Will. Does anybody have any questions while Will gets his computer?
Oh, Scott?
Hold up. I'm gonna put you back up, sorry.
And I apologize, Will may have already covered this. If this covers, and again, Will, you can let me know if you covered this, covers everybody in the school on each plan, as we're looking at it. And that is newer. So, Will, did you already cover that? I apologize, I can hear most of it.
No, what we, Scott, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
What Will only put up on the screen was the supplement amount for the instructional bargaining unit members only.
Got it.
Yeah, because that's all we can really talk about here.
Yeah, gotcha, okay, yep.
Okay. Well,
I can say though, to Scott's point, I think the recommendation from the committee, not all of it, obviously, like Jill said here for tonight, but the thought was everyone that works at the school should be included, administrators, support staff. That was a strong interest of the committee, because I think there was an acknowledgement that at some of these schools, you have very senior support staff who are just as instrumental in making an impact on student performance, or that the stability in leadership is important to being able to have stable staff and all of that stuff.
My question was going to be to the Spout employee question, or I guess issue. Has this been discussed at Spout bargaining yet? And how would an orange circle here, I guess, affect what's negotiated at the Spout table?
well,
All right.
back on.
We have not discussed this with Spout bargaining, and so we would need to have that conversation. I think Jill and Scott can maybe speak to some of this too. There were other non-bargaining related recommendations that have come out of the turnaround committee. Some of those we've been able to implement. One was related to student assignment and trying to provide some flexibility for staff that work at turnaround schools currently, so that they can navigate student assignment a little bit more easily, so that they're not having a student that attends a school on the other side of the district from where they're working when we're struggling to get them to work at some of these schools to begin with. We just wanted to make it as easy as possible. There were other recommendations related to academic programming that we will continue to share with academic services. But again, as far as the TALC bargaining related portion of that, it is just the TALC supplement.
All right, Kevin, or Jill, do you have more to add to that? First, and then go to Kevin.
Yeah, so like what Will said, one of the things, because when we do the recommendation for the supplement, it's usually a 2-year commitment to the schools to receive that supplement. So in between that time, we do discuss ways that we can support turnaround schools in our districts. Like Will said, bringing programming in, talking about are there incentives that would also support retention in those schools. We've done surveys to look at those different things. And then when I know people brought up other supplements, even though our committee, our purview is TALC bargaining, so we technically can't negotiate for any other unit. So when we talk about like Schedule N administrators or staff, but as a committee, we have discussed that everyone associated with the school, so support personnel, administrators, Schedule N, all the teachers, that we all share the challenges of working in a turnaround school. So that's not something that only teachers face, it's a challenge that is faced by all employees. And so we have advocated for support for the other bargaining units. We've just discussed it, but like I said, that's not a recommendation that we can bring forward, but we have recognized that the value to support everyone is there.
Okay, Kevin.
And nothing, well, I don't know, nothing, but certainly very few things made Jamie angrier than TALC negotiating for STALC. And so, even though Jamie is retired, Amanda is the new president and Bernie is the administrator for STALC. And I have mentioned this. I told Bernie, listen, we're gonna be talking about this tonight. It involves you guys, just so he's aware. So, you know, when you bring it up on Thursday, if that's when you talk about it, STALC isn't blindsided by the idea that TALC is put a value amount on a STALC employee in a turnaround school. So I've made him aware, but I do agree with everybody that it does, you know, from the bus driver to the cafeteria worker, to the custodian, to the teacher, to the admin, you know, everybody plays a role in every child's life. And so, like I said, Bernie's aware. And so when you bring it up to him, and I may share this with him tomorrow, but I gotta live in the office with the STALC, so I don't wanna go and throw my weight around and negotiate exclusively for them either.
Okay, so are we ready for the recommendation now from the committee? As an option?
All right, I'm gonna stop.
Okay.
That makes bigger.
Yes.
So I don't know, if you guys can, if Will, when Will has, scrolled down, you'll see that, you just scroll down a little bit more. Okay, you can see that, the majority of the schools that have been labeled in a turnaround position. Okay.
Just so YouTube gets it too.
I know, I'm sorry to all our fans out there who are watching. Yes, please don't forget to like and subscribe to B Schools TV. So you guys can see the majority of our schools we have 3 schools who are in F, we have a handful of schools who are D, and then we have some transition schools. I also think we have something on there for schools who are no longer in that, no longer on the list, but have been turnaround schools, and there's an interest to provide them a supplement that's on there, I think.
That's a transition. And so there, I believe, are 25 schools. There's one school that is not in that, you know, top 25. It was further down the list, but it's one that historically has been receiving that supplement. And so I think there was concern that if we were to remove the support from that school, that would be problematic. One other thing that I can share with you, and we haven't showed you any of the school names. Again, this is how it went with the committee. I think when we did the, you know, move the bus and everyone got to see what was behind I think there were some of the schools that people were kind of confused about how did they make it onto the list. We've had some conversations with academic services about trying to align the recommendation, and I think one of the things that they had brought up that we planned on bringing back to the Turnaround School Committee was perhaps looking at every Tier 3 school that is not on the list at least receiving that transition amount. Any schools that are on that list that are not Tier 3 schools perhaps coming off. That's kind of a second option separate from the recommendation of the committee, but just wanted to throw that out there before we put schools out there and show names if we want to do that tonight. And people are shocked and say, oh no, I can't live with this school or that school being on the list because it's not the same between, them and the others.
Jill?
So I guess it needs some clarity because this is the proposal that our committee is bringing forward. So when we ask to approve something, this is what we'd be approving. And so now I guess my question is academic services, that option, I guess I need some more clarification on how many options are gonna be put up.
Rob?
Yeah, I can't answer that question, but I can ask some questions of the committee folks that are in here. So looking at the current contract, it appears as though there are 10 schools. And that looks like it is tripled. Is that what I'm seeing?
That is what you're seeing, and that I would say is a direct reflection of the adverse impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the children of the school district of Lee County.
So only 10 schools qualified last year based on the same matrix? Is that accurate?
Well, not,
I'm not on the committee, but here's how, but here's how it's one of the few committees I'm not on, and thankfully so. But here's how it's gone down in the past, being on just the bargaining team side of it. Typically, the committee makes the recommendations and they're ranked. We then say how much money is available to spend on turnaround schools. A number is shared, and based on the sharing of the number, we cut. So had there been more money available in the past, there probably would have been, because they do multiple, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, they do multiple pay options each time too. So we pick the gold medal plan at the $12 million level, that gets us 20 schools. The platinum plan gets us 10. Gotcha. So it's really, and I think this year, because they expanded it so much, it was because of the inclusion of ESSER money. So I think the ESSER money on top of what may have already been budgeted has allowed the committee to include more schools. And I just gotta say personally, I'm uncomfortable with adding recommendations to the committee's work at this point. Is academic services invited to the meetings of the committee? Did they attend? Just so typically we do the committee, come here, get the recommendation, and it's pretty much, what's the use of the committee if, I'm just saying. But anyway, back to the funding model, it's typically based on the idea of how much money there is available is where the school cut line is.
Rob?
Well, I get you, and I obviously honor the work of the committees. I've been in bargaining for almost 20 years. However, it appears as though, from what you're saying, there was a presumption by the committee that ESSER funds would be used for some of this. And I understand there's management people on the committee, but I'm just saying.
Jill?
and I understand, and we've had a budget that we've worked with, and even last year, we decided to do a grace period and extend to the 10 schools that had been there for one more year. And so we had a budget. Yes, there's ESSER money, the team will tell you, I really come from the place of, you don't get what you don't ask for. So in an effort to support as many schools as possible, I'm gonna bring a robust offer and see what's reasonable. And I'll be honest, like, I don't remember, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, I don't remember our team being given a budget. We've had the same budget year after year, but so here's the thing, so I look at it like, if I don't bring something forward for as many schools as possible, for the most amount of support as possible, then like I said, you don't get what you don't ask for. So I'd rather bring more forward, and then if we have to work within constraints, then work within those constraints. But we felt as a committee, we wanted to put a robust plan together. We wanted to support schools with COVID-19 adversely impacting the learning of our students. The socio-emotional aspects of that, we wanted to bring something forward for as many schools that are in what appears to be a bad situation, to where if they continue on the path they are on, they could be considered district accountability in the next few years. So again, I know this is robust. I know that this is a lot of money, but again, we wanted to bring forward as many schools as possible. And like I said, we've talked about expanding and paring down. When Dr. Pruitt was here, she came to us and said, if you lower the supplement, we can expand it to more schools one year. So we've worked a lot with different budgets and things like that, but without being given a number, we brought this forward.
So nobody said you have this much in ESSER funding, they're just trying to come together with an option, and it's up to us to talk about that option. Will?
I think one of the other things, like Jill said, the interest of the committee was putting out kind of as big of an ask as we could kind of come up with. I think that there was an understanding too that after it came to bargaining, that there was perhaps, a chance that either the committee would be asked to go back and refine the recommendation, or that, as Jill said, there would be an amount that would be discussed and perhaps agreed upon, and then again, the committee would have the ability to go back and look at that and say, what are the priorities from that point forward.
Okay. So can we put an option that we can put up on the chart here in words?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
Committee members, what year or what data is all of that based on? Are we using the newest data?
Yeah, so, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was gonna say, if I.
Hold on, Scott, hold on.
Hang on, Scott.
What if you just held that to the computer?
Okay.
You want to see him?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Was the question, and I apologize, was the question, are we using the most recent data?
Yes. Yes,
If that, I apologize, it's hard to hear, but if that was the question, and Will, you can correct me, we did use 2021 school grade, correct, Will?
Yes.
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 So that was, and that was something we talked about, I thought that was, pretty important. So that's the most recent data that was used, the 2021 school grade, and that was, you're getting the 3-year, 5-year, and then the combo. And there's nothing yet. I guess if the question is, are we looking at things right now? No, we would have went back to last year that school grade came out.
They go back to last year when school grades. Well,
I can also say, just in terms of when there was the ask for data in terms of demographic stuff, the committee put the recommendation together in December. And so, kind of current staffing levels were considered at that point. So when I send stuff out so that everyone can see what we put up on the screen, it'll have as of 12/12/21, kind of what the number of administrators, instructional and support staff was.
So, as the president of the union, I am interested in that money. Like, what is the amount of money? I mean, I know what it typically is. How much ESSER money are we devoting to this? Can we afford? Because again, what we're not showing is the whole picture. I mean, again, administrators make a difference, but administrators are on here and they're compensated at a higher level than the teachers, who are compensated at a higher level than support staff. So I guess my question is, what's the total cost around here? What is the budget, practically speaking? Because again, the committee comes back with the robust, and we kind of have to decide how to pare it down if need be. And then if this is ESSER funding based, that money is not in perpetuity. So how do we prepare for the idea that, you know, it's $10,000 for 2 years, but then, because what is it now? I can't remember what it is now. It's $4,000 now. So again, this is a double and a half at the gold plan and almost a tripling at the platinum plan. That's a lot of P's. Sorry. So again, we need to make people aware that, you know, this kind of robust funding probably won't exist, and we probably won't be able to afford the number of schools. So I think it's important we know what the number is.
Well,
So based on the two recommendations that are there, and this includes all employee groups, so I'd have to get back to you in terms of what the TALC specific portion of that is. Although you can figure that, you know, based on some of those numbers, it's going to be, you know, more than half of the overall expense. I believe that the platinum plan was about $21 million. And the gold plan was about $14 million. I think, kind of to Kevin's point, the discussion around, you know, kind of making the request or wanting to look at considering, you know, the use of ESSER funding was that there's an understanding that that money is available for 2 years. This historically has been a 2-year commitment. And so I think that's kind of where the committee was going with that. There was a lot of discussion, as Jill mentioned, about some of the impacts of poverty on students, and that a lot of the schools that have been on the turnaround school list have a high percentage of students who are low socioeconomic status, and saying some of that not just multiplies, but it's kind of an exponential impact on COVID impacts. That you have students that don't have adequate supports for, you know, life without a pandemic, and then you throw a pandemic on top, and it puts an even greater strain on either available resources at the school level or at home. Additional stresses and other things. And there was a lot of discussion about that, even at the beginning of the pandemic, that, you know, summertime slide and what the impact would be. One other thing I would say, and this is just based on some conversations that we've had with Dr. Savage, the names too, you don't need to like get hung up on those. Those can change. I think the intent was, you know, transformation, turnaround, transition. If someone has better names, it's kind of like the platinum and gold. You know, we just came up with something. If someone wants them to be, you know, animal names or, you know, favorite colors, we don't have to do Bengals and Rams, but that's kind of secondary, I guess.
all right, Anna.
Could you just clarify for me when you said that those amounts were based on all staff? Is that TALC and spouse, Schedule N included, admins included? What do you mean? Could you just elaborate what all is?
Yes, that was trying to include admin, spouse, and N in the calculation. So again, we'd have to go back and look at what those numbers would look like. We did adjust kind of up and down. I want to say that the committee asked for us to do something similar to what takes place with A+ money. where, people get a certain percentage based on, their DRA. We didn't do that exactly, but I think that was kind of the intent behind that. But again, if you look at that, I think it's the fourth school down row 5, 6 administrators, 108 instructional staff, 56 out, and 3 in. The lion's share is TALC. There's more teachers than there are any staff of any other group at any location.
Do you happen to have a number for, that would be just for the TALC employees?
I see what you're getting at.
Different pot?
Well, and that's an easy way to maybe do the math. Looking at this, let me try and highlight just the schools that we had mentioned, and I can tell you how many TALC people are on there, if that's what you're looking for. Give me just a second.
I don't know if we'll need to go crazy. I mean, we can get the answer for you, but we need to caucus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We are bidding.
I get
45, so
I get 5.
Can we have a back support?
Sure, and I first want to apologize, I didn't anticipate it being that long, but sometimes, as you all know, that happens. So we discussed the turnaround school committee work, which we value, very much so. I think we do have some suggestions, they're not options, and some things we want to talk about. A couple of things that I want to point out before I turn it over to Will is that, like for instance, last year, where the $2 million was the amount of money that went into the plan. But additional resources are put into those schools, and I think you all know that. And to keep the class sizes down and things like that. So the district does, I see Anna scoffing.
Sorry.
It's okay. And so it's important to understand that it's not just $2 million being put towards the plan. There's other things that are done, especially those that are also tier 3 schools that receive additional support and services. So with that, the other point I would just make is that even though there's ESSER funds, it's not an unlimited amount of money. And in fact, we don't have authority from the board to spend an unlimited amount of money from ESSER. So there is some limit to that. And with that, regarding the work of the committee and moving forward, I'll turn it over to Will.
Okay.
So I don't know if this necessarily needs to go into the caucus report or if this is more story. But I would say we had a lot of discussion and I think that through some of it, I would say we're still trying to figure out again, how do we define the problem? What are strategies and solutions that will work? I think a lot of the conversation mirrored what has happened in the committee in terms of, we understand that there are some schools where there are greater needs, greater challenges, but I think in terms of looking at, is it DA status? Is it restoration? Is it stability? Is it turnaround? Is it recovery? I think we were having a lot of conversation around that, and so I think from there, there were a couple different interests that the district side wanted to share with the committee in hopes that if there's an ability to continue the conversation, that some of those interests can maybe be woven into a recommendation, and that we would return with a refined recommendation, which again, my understanding from the committee meetings was that was kind of what we were hoping for from both sides was, here's the initial recommendation, what do you think, where do we need to make adjustments in order for it to be something that both bargaining teams can support. I can tell you, I think all around this is an issue that everyone feels very passionately about and that there are not clear right answers. Some may be better than others. I think, again, both the committee and the district team were interested in making sure that we have data so that we can say that this is effective at accomplishing whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so I think that kind of captures it.
Okay, Kirk.
I guess I just have a question because I'm a little confused. Is it? Now it is. No, it's not. So I guess I just have a question because I'm a little confused. The contract says that the Turnaround Schools Committee, which is a joint labor and management committee, is charged with developing options that, come to the bargaining table to assist in improving working conditions at schools receiving the supplement. So I guess what I'm hearing is the committee has done the work, which had both labor and management representatives on it, but the district bargaining team doesn't like the options, and so you're asking the committee to go back to the table? Or where are we here?
Well, my understanding is the committee was trying to meet as late as today. So there was some desire to get folks together today. So I'm not sure if the work is completely done or not. But I don't think there's a deadline in there that says the committee can't continue to work. So, I mean, my point, I'd like to know about today, because Jill raised her hand as soon as I said that.
Yeah.
Because I was copying out a bunch of emails where people were trying to get together today.
All right, Jill?
So the reason, we had a meeting last week that we had to postpone, and we wanted to meet today before bargaining to just review the recommendation, because it had been about 7 to 8 weeks, and just make sure that Scott and I had everything in line and we were ready to present today. Because I'll say this, last week when I saw a turnaround on the agenda, as the committee chairs, Scott and I have not been communicated with that presentation would have been last week. And so that's why we wanted to meet and just review and make sure everything was prepared and ready for tonight, to make sure that there were no other issues, because I think Kevin brought up earlier, there have been some conversations about things happening in turnaround where that took place outside of our committee. So, but that was the purpose of our meeting, was to be sure that everything was prepared and ready for tonight, and that the plans that we agreed to 6 or 7 weeks ago, or many weeks ago, that was what was going to be coming forward, and not any adjusted or altered plans.
Okay, explanation for today, trying to schedule a meeting today. Kevin?
And I also have to say, there is no contractual deadline, but there is a deadline for the principals of the schools who end up being on the final list, because this is, whether we do $4,000 or $9,000 or $20,000, it's a robust amount of money, and I believe principals use that in the hiring process. So at some point, people have to know they're on the list or not on the list, so they can know what to offer potential employees if they come to work in a school on the list. And again, this is completely different than 7 years of work. 7 years of work, the committee makes a recommendation, we come here, or the committee knows the amount of money beforehand, does its work, comes here, we adjust based on money. This is the first time that has yet to happen, and honestly, I thought this was easy. I thought we were gonna, because I didn't know there wasn't a budget given to them, and if you don't give them a budget, they're gonna do what, they're gonna have robust plans. I mean, they just are. My youngest daughter is a robust spender of her money, because she has no real confines about what she has to spend it on. And so if you had given them the money, it would look different. But again, we typically get the list of recommendations, find the money, do the cut, and then move on. And I'm gonna say it again. This work happens in the committee. It doesn't happen in the superintendent's office, and it doesn't happen in academic services independent of the committee meetings, especially when the head of academic services is invited to every meeting, though he may not be a committee member. So this is a dangerous precedent since July 1st.
Well, the more relevant to TALC, obviously we can have conversations about turnaround principles as administrators. I think you would acknowledge that, correct? Okay. So, where does that leave us? Well, Kevin says unprecedented. Well, it's unprecedented, I believe, I haven't been here, but 30 schools being brought forward is unprecedented, from what I gather. It's also a year, once again, that's no better than last year with COVID, and we're using school grades, which probably is not real fair. So there's a number of things, if we want to dissect all of the committee's work, that maybe does need to be looked at. I have all respect in the world for the committee to some extent, but if you're using school grades in a COVID year, that's probably a concern.
So that would probably be academic services input to the committee meetings as the committee meetings were happening. Correct? That's where that belongs in the process.
I'm not going to be cross-examined.
I'm just asking. To me, that's where it belongs. Not after they made a recommendation And then all of a sudden, it's 30. Yeah, it's 30. If you tell me it's $20 million, we'll cost it out and make the cut line tonight and live with the results because they are the same data we've used all the time. And if you say take last year's grade off and refigure, that's another discussion, but that's happening in Jill and Scott's committee. That's not me.
Jill?
I understand your concern about using school grade, especially with the situations we faced in COVID. Part of the reason why you're seeing more schools is because the COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge impact on student learning. But what we did was we took the rubric we've been using and we stuck with that because, you know, understand that over time we've looked at it, we've discussed it, but a few years ago, that rubric was put together and it was brought to us as a way to really rank schools and to develop a system so that we weren't sitting there and saying, oh, no, based on our reputation, the school needs money. Or, you know what, these 3 teachers are on the committee, so they're gonna fight for that school, and that principal's on the committee, they're gonna get it. We wanted to develop a system that was equitable to the best of our ability, and we have used school grade during that process. So to remove it now, I don't think would have been the right thing to do. And one of the most important things to me, as a member of that committee, and someone who has come year after year, and I have worked at schools on that list, I wanted to make sure that I could always stand behind what we did and make sure that if someone said to me, well, you work at Easton, there's the money there, and Scott works at Manatee, and Anna's at Colonial, and this person's at James Stevens, and all your schools have that money, we needed a way to say, that had nothing to do with it. We developed a rubric, and year after year, we have maintained the consistency of that rubric. And I understand the struggle with school grade, and I get those concerns, but we've been consistent. And I think to change that could really call a lot of things into question.
All right, we have 3 minutes left. Anna, can you say something in 3 minutes or less?
Sure can. I just wanted to say too that part of the reason that school grades are a part of this is because that's what the state used to determine a school to be in DA status. So when Turnaround School first came out, before it was Turnaround School and it was the hardest staff school, that's kind of like the history of this that we continue to follow. And it is a challenge. There was 2 years ago, we didn't have school grades at all because we didn't finish the school year. Last year, we didn't have school grades, but we kind of had school grades, but they didn't really count. So it has been a challenge on how do we do this in the most fair and equitable way to determine what grouping of schools are struggling. And quite frankly, one of the concerns in the committee is that through the course of all of this, there are going to be more turnaround schools, that we are going to have more schools in DA status. We don't know what our state's going to do. And that's where it does come into play, where just because it's a school, let's say Sanibel, because we always use Sanibel. Sanibel is all of a sudden an F school. Well, Sanibel isn't really a turnaround school with all the different criteria and things that we need, that we have to deal with on site at our current turnaround schools, because we deal with so much more. And essentially, we deal with the effects of poverty. And I don't think that any amount of money is ever going to fix, we're not going to fix poverty in our community, but we are going to do our best. And when you talk about putting resources in, smaller class sizes, I've been at my school site for 5 years and I've never had a smaller class size, ever. And so and they say we're a tier 4 school. I didn't even know tier 4 was around. And I don't see what those extra supports are. And maybe I'm always willing to learn more, but you know, we're facing a very real reality of the unknown. And so trying to be as fair and equitable as we always have is the best that we can do.
All right, from what I'm hearing, I think that if the committee has some kind of dollar amount to work with, they could probably come back with a better, more accurate, recommendation for the bargaining teams to look at. So if that would be possible, our next meeting is February 28th. And if the committee could get together and they could have a bottom amount, then maybe we could fix this on February 28th.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I think there's a more involved conversation, and maybe this year isn't the time to take it on. But labeling schools, putting them on a list, taking them off, putting them on a list, taking them off, is something I'll just tell you, I'm inherently opposed to. I think Anna's right. We are not gonna solve generational poverty, but it's our job to fund education in those schools that need it the most. And so this back and forth, having a committee, reviewing this matrix, that matrix, that's all well and good, but it's not truly going to get to the problem. And until we have the desire to do that, we're gonna continue to do this. And we should be together, not arguing about this.
I agree, it should be together. With that, it is 7:01. So our next meeting, I think we have things to think about. Our next meeting is February 28th. And I will see you all back, Jill, Mike, right beside you.
Is there, I'd like a data request for a dollar amount for the turnaround school to work with, so if we could get that.
I didn't reject what you were saying.
No, that's okay, no, I know, and then, Scott and I, we will make time with the rest of our committee members, to figure that out, so just let us know, just if we could meet, the 3:30 time frame is difficult, because there's a lot of dismissal issues at that time for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for being here. Thank you, Scott.